I was catfished by someone I knew in real life, a girl named Beth who had a crush on me, but didn't think I'd be interested in her. I never imagined I'd be the type of person to get catfished. You know, those stories about people falling for someone they met online, only to find out they've been tricked by a total stranger? That was always something that happened to other people. People who ignored obvious red flags or didn't know how to navigate the internet. But this was personal. The person behind it wasn't a stranger at all. It was someone I knew in real life. And worse yet, it was someone I trusted. It all started about 2 years ago. I was 26, living in a small town where everyone knew everyone. Dating in a small town was rough, so like a lot of people, I turned to online dating apps. I had a few short-term relationships here and there, but nothing really serious. I wasn't in a rush to settle down, but I also wasn't looking for casual flings. I wanted something real, and for some reason, that was hard to find. One night, while I was aimlessly swiping through profiles, I came across someone who immediately caught my eye. Her name was Emma, and she was exactly my type. Dark hair, kind smile, and she had written a bio that felt like it was tailored to my interests: books, travel, and a love for cooking. It was almost too good to be true, but I didn't think much of it. Her profile seemed genuine, and her photos looked real enough. I swiped right, and to my surprise, we matched almost instantly. We started chatting that same evening. Emma was funny, smart, and we clicked on so many levels. Our conversations were long and deep, and over the next few weeks, we messaged every day, sometimes staying up late into the night just talking about life, our dreams, and everything in between. It felt like I had finally met someone who got me. There was just one problem. Emma didn't want to meet in person. I didn't push it at first. She had told me early on that she was a bit shy and had trust issues from past relationships. I respected that. She explained that she wanted to take things slow and build a connection before jumping into anything face to face. I figured it was understandable, so I gave her space. Weeks turned into months. By then, we were basically in what felt like an emotional relationship. We talked all the time, and I felt like I was really falling for her. But every time I brought up meeting, she had a new excuse. One time she said she was traveling for work. Another time she claimed she was dealing with a family emergency. After a while, it started to feel like she was just stringing me along. I'd ask my friends for advice, and most of them told me to move on. They said it was weird that someone I'd been talking to for months wasn't willing to meet, but I didn't listen. There was just something about Emma that kept me hooked. I didn't want to believe that I had wasted all that time for nothing. Then came the turning point. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was out grabbing coffee with some friends when my buddy Mark mentioned that one of his coworkers had set up a profile on the same dating app one was using. He pulled out his phone to show me her profile, and that's when it hit me. The pictures on Mark's screen. They were the same pictures Emma had used on her profile. Same smile, same hair, same everything. But the name wasn't Emma. It was Grace. And Grace wasn't some shy, reserved girl who didn't want to meet in person. She was a real person who lived a couple of towns over, and apparently, she'd never heard of me or our months of conversations. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Suddenly, all of the doubts and suspicions I'd pushed aside came rushing back. How had I not seen it sooner? I had been catfished, and now I needed to know who had been behind it. I confronted Emma that same night. I messaged her, saying that I knew about the pictures and that she wasn't who she said she was. I expected her to block me or come up with some excuse, but instead, she confessed. The person behind the fake profile was someone I never would have guessed: Beth, a girl I'd known since high school. Beth and I weren't exactly close friends, but we ran in the same circles, and we'd always been friendly. She was quiet, kind of shy, and never really seemed like someone who'd pull something like this. When I asked her why she did it, her answer made me even more confused. She told me she had created the fake profile as a way to get closer to me. She'd had a crush on me for years, but she didn't think I'd be interested in her. So instead of approaching me as herself, she created Emma, thinking that if she could get me to like her as someone else, maybe one day she could reveal the truth and we could be together. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me was furious. Part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly I felt betrayed. She had built this fake relationship with me for months, knowing it wasn't real, knowing that it would eventually fall apart. When I asked her why she didn't just tell me the truth from the start, she said she was scared. Scared that I'd reject her. scared that she'd lose the connection we had built. But it wasn't real. None of it was. Beth apologized, saying she never meant to hurt me and that she thought I'd understand. She said she hoped we could still be friends. But I couldn't even begin to process what she was asking. I had fallen for someone who didn't exist, someone who was just a mask for a person I thought I knew. It wasn't something I could just move past. I told Beth that I needed time and space to figure things out, but the truth was I didn't want anything to do with her after that. How could I? She had manipulated me, made me feel something real for a person who was entirely fake. The betrayal ran deep, and even though part of me understood why she did it, the damage was already done. For the next few weeks, I felt completely lost. I kept replaying all of our conversations in my head, wondering how I could have been so blind. Every time I thought about it, I get this sinking feeling in my stomach. It wasn't just the fact that Beth had lied. It was the realization that the person I had opened up to, shared my dreams and insecurities with, didn't even exist. I had fallen in love with a ghost. What made it even harder was the fact that I still had to see Beth around town. Our town was small, and it was impossible to avoid her completely. She would smile at me awkwardly whenever we crossed paths, but I never knew how to respond. I tried my best to ignore her, to pretend she didn't exist, but it wasn't easy. Every time I saw her, it brought everything back. Eventually, I deleted my dating app and distanced myself from anything that reminded me of those months I had spent talking to Emma. It felt like the best thing I could do to start healing. I wasn't ready to trust anyone new, and I knew I needed to take some time for myself. That's when I started confiding in my friends more. At first, I was embarrassed to tell them the whole story. Getting catfished by someone you know is humiliating, and I wasn't sure how they'd react. But when I finally opened up about it, they were surprisingly supportive. A few of them even admitted they had been in similar situations, falling for someone online who turned out to be nothing like they expected. It helped to know I wasn't the only one who had been duped. One of my closest friends, Jake, gave me some of the best advice during that time. He told me that I needed to stop beating myself up over it. "You're not stupid for trusting people," he said. "It's just that some people take advantage of that trust. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong." I don't think I'd realized until that moment how much I had been blaming myself for everything that happened. Hearing him say that lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. With time, I began to accept that what happened wasn't a reflection of me. It was a reflection of Beth and her insecurities. Sure, I had been fooled, but I had acted in good faith. I had been open and honest, and I was looking for a real connection. The fact that Beth couldn't give me that wasn't my fault. About 6 months later, Beth reached out to me again. She sent me a long message apologizing once more, saying she had been going to therapy to work through her issues and that she realized how badly she had hurt me. She said she understood if I never wanted to talk to her again, but she hoped we could find some kind of closure. It took me a few days to respond. Part of me wanted to just ignore her and move on with my life, but another part of me felt like I needed to have that final conversation to really close the door on everything. So, I agreed to meet her for coffee. When we met up, Beth looked nervous. She apologized again, and for the first time, I could see how much guilt she was carrying. She explained that the fake profile wasn't just about me. It was a result of her feeling insecure and lonely for years. She said she had never felt good enough, and that creating Emma was her way of escaping those feelings. I listened, but I kept my distance emotionally. I didn't want to get sucked back into her web of lies. And I made it clear that while I appreciated her apology, I couldn't forget what she did. We talked for about an hour, and by the end of it, I felt a strange sense of peace. Not because I forgave her completely, but because I finally had the closure I needed. I told her that I hoped she would find a healthier way to deal with her insecurities in the future, but that we couldn't be friends. Too much had happened, and I didn't trust her anymore. After that meeting, I felt like I could finally move on. I had spent so much time dwelling on what happened, feeling hurt and angry, but now I was ready to let go. I started putting myself out there again, slowly rebuilding my confidence. I even went on a few dates, though nothing serious. Looking back, I see that the whole experience taught me a lot. I learned that trust is something you can't take for granted. It has to be earned, and once it's broken, it's hard to get back. But I also learned that you can't let one bad experience define you. Beth's actions were about her, not about me. I could have easily let what happened make me bitter, but I chose not to. Now, I'm in a much better place. I'm more careful when it comes to dating, but I haven't let it close me off to the idea of finding love again. If anything, I'm more sure of what I'm looking for. Someone who is honest, open, and real. It's funny in a way. When I was talking to Emma, I thought I had found someone who understood me completely. But now, I realize that I'm better off without that fantasy. What I want, what I need, is someone who sees me for who I am. No lies, no games. And one day, I believe I'll find that. TLDR. I was catfished by someone I knew in real life. A girl named Beth who had a crush on me, but didn't think I'd be interested in her. She created a fake profile and strung me along for months. When I found out, I was devastated, but I eventually confronted her and got the closure I needed. It took time, but I moved on and learned to value honesty and trust more than ever.